As Ethan and I can see by the peacock there, we're going to talk about Comcast first. We're going to talk about this is like the other, and this is kind of a what's going on, and this is what's going on in the world of broadband. We have two of the primary representatives. So there we go. Okay. So first up, Alyssa, you want to talk about what Comcast is up to?
Sure. Do you have the remote to pan through the slides?
Oh.
Thank you. Okay. Bear with me. This is my first time presenting, so yes, I'm going to read from a paper periodically because I cannot remember this material. DOCSIS 4.0. Our deployment of DOCSIS 4.0 technology will give us the ability to deliver multi-gigabit speeds to customers using connections that already exist. Customers will experience speeds of up to 10 gigabits over our traditional network. We began rolling out DOCSIS 4.0 to select neighborhoods and plan to launch new markets throughout the country over the next few years. In 2023, we increased homes businesses passed by 1.1 million for about a total of 62.5 million passed. We have about 1 billion or so devices that people are using in and out of the home. Fiber is our biggest competitor. So is fixed wireless. We expect fixed wireless to be competitive for a while. But as internet usage continues to grow, especially with sports now streaming, we believe DOCSIS 4.0 will give us the opportunity to compete effectively. This is our new node. This is the new virtual CMTS now located within our nodes. It's transforming the operations and customer experience function. These end-to-end chipsets will give us the ability to monitor and detect network issues, sometimes even before the customer is impacted. In the past, we would have to deploy technicians, which could take a few hours to find that issue and resolve it. The real-time issue localization will transform network maintenance going forward. With a 32 million broadband subscriber base, these new nodes will not only provide better service, but better network diagnostic insights. So how does that impact property tax? Well, we're looking at all the different depreciation tables and determining where this high-tech asset should be reported.
But are these being deployed now?
Yes.
Already?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the standard now.
Yes.
So all your older equipment should be
Yes.
is experiencing substantial obsolescence. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Who here streamed the AFC wildcard on Peacock? Yes. That was the most streamed live event in US history. Peacock delivered its largest single day ever with audience usage, engagement, and time spent with a record 16.3 million concurrent devices. We reached 27.6 million total viewers. Some would say thank you to Taylor Swift. She probably brought those numbers up. Peacock's paid subscribers increased nearly 50% to 31 million, including 3 million net adds in the fourth quarter. There was a video there, but it was too large to play, so I've since got rid of it. Xumo. Xumo is a joint venture between Comcast and Charter. This is the newest device that will be powered by Comcast Entertainment Operating System, which will make finding content simple. The Xumo Stream Box makes it easy for customers to quickly jump in to their favorite live, on-demand, or streaming content, but also enables seamless discovery of new programming through an integrated content forward interface and voice remote, which I think is awesome because I personally love the voice remote. So now you guys can enjoy that voice remote. This is available to customers in the Comcast and Charter footprint.
How much is a Xumo box?
So I believe it's $15 activation fee for Comcast customers, but there's no monthly fee for that. And And then I believe we looked online, the Zumo box, if you go onto a Zumo, it's $60. Yeah.
So you just have to get that box and a Zumo remote and your plug and play?
And a broadband connection. Yes, then your plug and play. Xfinity Wireless continues to grow. We added 310,000 new lines in the fourth quarter. We're at roughly 11% penetration. Roughly 90% of our customers' data usage is over Xfinity Wi-Fi. Hosting most of this data over our Wi-Fi creates significant savings and enables competitive pricing. Our 5G network field tests with CBRS spectrum have exceeded expectations and have been found to be highly efficient. We're unlikely to need the 600 megahertz spectrum licenses, and as a result, we have entered into an agreement with T-Mobile, which they will lease and eventually purchase our licenses. So thank you.
That's why she wore the
That's
cool magenta
exactly.
jacket. by the
Everyone
way. It's
asks
just
me if I'm a
the
T-Mobile
T-Mobile
member,
partnership.
but
Yes,
I'm
yes.
saying, I mean, we're partnering with Charter, partnering with T-Mobile. I'm sure AT&T maybe is next.
Just, she likes your colors better.
The AT&T broadband update. So somebody stole this earlier, the if you build it, will they come? The Field of Dreams. Somebody jumped in on my slide early.
Sorry.
Just taking a look here at wireline providers, the telcos mainly, and just fiber builds by carrier. So nothing new here that you haven't heard in the past, just a lot of fiber rollout. And it's interesting just to see the different telcos, kind of the layers there of who's building and how fast in these years. Obviously, AT&T's got the biggest block there and is continuing to ramp up. And we'll jump into some numbers here shortly.
Now, Stu, one question. With all this fiber build out, is this mostly related to the true AT&T fiber to the prim network?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
So another look at telco fiber homes passed, just kind of a different view of this ramp up. So you can just kind of see percentage of households, and the catch here is on that right side, percentage of U.S. households. You see it's just over 55%. So even with all the fiber rollout that's been going on over the last few years, a lot of capital investment there, still a lot of homes to cover. Feeds into the BEAD conversation we just heard, and that we'll hear more tomorrow on. That there's still a lot of locations out there. The catch is obviously in your more dense urban areas, you're able to pass more locations cheaper per location because you're rolling that fiber down a street and hitting a lot more homes. When you get out in the more rural areas, it becomes the economics of that kind of get a little tough when you've got one house on a street and you've got to run 5 miles to that house and you're only getting one location. So once you start to saturate your urban markets, kind of looking at where you're going to build outside of that is where it gets tough, and the business plans really have to kick in to try to determine where the next build areas are. So fiber versus legacy, and this is something all the telcos are battling, especially AT&T. This is a big focus for us, is that the fiber rollout is in our wireline footprint, right? So that means that these locations, for the most part, are already covered by our legacy copper network. So issue there, legacy copper, not a great product anymore. We saw some of the speeds mentioned earlier today on that. Everybody wants something faster, and that's where fixed wireless is really trying to hone in on, is where there's not a fiber product right now. That's where they're catching a lot of this. So as we mentioned earlier, on AT&T's fixed wireless plan is to try to make that a catch product, because we're trying to catch these non-fiber customers and switch them over to something else. We'd like for them to be on fiber, but if fiber's not in that area yet, you move them to fixed wireless. The copper network, very expensive to operate. There's excess costs there that we're experiencing, basically running 2 networks, and I'll kind of cover that right at the end of this. So a look at competition here. You see the difference between telco and cable on this slide, and really the uptick for telco here at the end, kind of gaining on cable. And, not surprising, that kind of tracks with the fiber rollout that you saw. As the telcos have really kind of leaned in on fiber and realized you're going to have to put that all the way to the prim, as you were talking, Jeff, to the house to give them that product. That's when this has really kind of changed over, and you've seen the telcos kind of come back and take some share back. And here's what I was talking about with AT&T, especially just the duplicate network. So 84% of the fiber builds we're doing right now is just building over our copper network. So in a lot of those areas, though, you're still operating both of them because of regulatory constraints. In a lot of areas, you've got customers who haven't rolled off of the copper yet. That's where AT&T comes in and is trying to entice them as quick as possible to move off of it so that you can shut down that copper network in areas. And even one thing I found surprising on this, that I threw that chart in on the left, even with all the fiber that AT&T has rolled out, and we've hit 26 million plus customer locations as of the last earnings Wednesday. So that's 26 million locations, but as you can see, we're only covering, what's that say, about 35% of our wireline footprint. So that tells you how much is left of that copper network that we're trying to turn down.
I mean, how much of it, you can have some areas you talked about that aren't practical. Now, those are less dense. Do you guys have any stats on, because to me, the first time, I think it maybe wasn't 35, it was in the last year or two. I heard Gary say that. I actually was surprised by how much it was. I didn't realize you guys had deployed that much fiber. So it's 35. Your number's obviously not 100. Do you know like what you think is practical or your goal? Is it 70? Is it, 75 or?
Yeah. So right now we've passed 26 million locations.
Mhm.
The plan is out at the end of 25 to be at 30 million.
Okay.
And then at that point, there's additional locations they're looking at to get over the 30, but right now the plan is through 25 to hit 30 million.
Okay.
This is a wireline discussion, Steve.
Yeah, I know. And that's why I'm asking a wireline question for you. What's your take rate? What's your penetration on those 26 million? Do you know?
39% on the consumer side.
That's right there with the market norm, right? I mean,
Right.
that's again, that's better than I would have expected. That's
And
good.
that penetration rate obviously changes, but what we've seen is when you're the first entrant in the market, obviously you're taking more share and getting better penetration there. Even when you're the second entrant with fiber in the market, you're still doing pretty well on penetration. But after that, if there's more than two carriers there, it gets pretty tough from a competition standpoint to try to move those customers, because once typically a customer is on fiber, it's going to be hard for anybody to move them off of it.
I got a quick question on the DOCSIS 4.0 you mentioned. So my home modem died a couple of months ago, so I had to do a little research on the DOCSIS 3.0, 3.5, 4.0, and so on. And also need to learn how to unregister your old modem with Comcast, how to register your new one so it will recognize it. It was fun. But my question is on 4.0 specifically. If you look on the side of the Wi-Fi router and Wi-Fi card for your laptop and Wi-Fi card for your smart TV and other IoT stuff, what kind of technology do you need to fully utilize 4.0 specs? And is that something commercially available right now, or is that something as a future release?
Good questions. I'll have to get back to you on that
Oh.
one. Do you know, Christian? Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming you can get that, right? Yeah, for 4.0.
Yeah, you definitely need a new gateway from Comcast in order to utilize the highest speeds. Our most recent device, I believe it's the XB7, is DOCSIS 4.0 capable. Once you've got that, wireless network set up in your house, I think any other devices that, access that will only be limited by the technology in the device. But I'm just more surprised that you don't have T-Mobile fixed wireless.
Oh, look at that.
Disclosure. Should, right?
You have a Zoom question? Or do you want to read it?
I think she's just gonna unmute. Okay, go ahead, Karen.
Hi, quick question for you. Great information from you both. On the slide, I saw something that said that what is happening with your overbuild of the copper, it can result in duplication of network and additional obsolescence. But if you're running both systems, how do you think that results in a duplication?
So I caught some of that. So on the duplicative networks, so it's the copper and the fiber network are running side by side in these areas. So in our wireline footprint, everybody's got the copper run to it from the legacy days. So now when you're rolling fiber next to it, you're running both of those. The copper network's more expensive. It's just more expensive, takes more power. It's more expensive to go fix. There's more maintenance to it because it breaks easier. So on your street, you could have one house that has still a DSL legacy copper product. The house next door would have a fiber product. So that's what we talk about when we're having to run two networks right now, because until we get that person off of that copper network, we can't shut it down for regulatory reasons.
Right. But you're still running them both, right? You're still running the copper and you're running a fiber at the same time to two different households, correct?
That's right. And the optimal solution would be for everybody to have fiber if you could get them to move over and migrate them off
Gotcha.
of the legacy services.
Okay, thank you.
So where were we? Let's see.
I think that's what we've got for prepared slides.
That's it. Okay. So let's open it up to any more questions. John, here you go.
So Steve, have you guys done some analysis on what those operating cost differences are on the copper legacy versus fiber? Because I mean, the savings on operating costs have to be substantial.
Yeah, we have. That's something we look into and push as a adjustment on the networks. Yeah. For valuation purposes, right?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'll make it a one-word comment for you or my Verizon friends on the phone. Lead.
No comment. No, there's been stories out lately, so we're working with the appropriate people to go through that and everything, but there's not been much publicly stated on that lately.
Have you been to Lake Tahoe recently?
Other questions? We got Larry? Oh.
It's more of a observation than a question, and that is, I've seen the rollout plans for DOCSIS 4.0 and all the associated equipment that goes with it, both from Charter and from Comcast, and they both line up very closely with those availability curves that I was showing earlier for 1G and for 10G.
Yes.
So that's
I
there's a
saw
lot
that.
of it makes sense that you're preparing strategically for where the market's going, especially in light of the fiber competition that you're facing now. Thanks.
So DOCSIS 4.0, just to clarify, it is designed and will provide 10G, right? So right now, what is your offering in most markets? So is it 3? I mean,
I believe we're up to 1 gig.
1 gig.
No?
I mean, I have 1 gig at home on Comcast. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the limited places that DOCSIS 4.0 is live today, I believe it's a little higher than 1. So I think it's like that 3 to 4 range,
Okay.
maybe up to 5. But we have not seen, at least in the real world environment, the
Right.
10 gigabit speeds yet.
Okay, yeah. What about AT&T fiber? What's yours? Your high?
No, on our consumer side, like
Yeah.
at my house, I've got 5 gig.
Got 5, okay.
On the TFI forecasts, we kind of go 1, 3, and 10 nominally. So we still got ways to go to get to 10K as part of the next generation. But the gigabit, which would be 3 or 4 or whatever, is definitely where we see everything going next. But there's 10 around the corner. I mean, the DOCSIS can do it, but I think there's just some engineering issues in terms of quantity, capacity.
Other questions?
I have one follow-up, and I guess that gets into the convergence, right? And Comcast released before the open this morning, and I happened to jump on the call and listen to your leadership talking about the importance of your wireless strategy. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on how far you're into the wireless business and why it's important to the cable guys and vice versa, maybe on the wireless side. If you have anything else, Ingram, on that too.
It's a good question.
Yeah. Why is it important? Well, I think what you're going to start seeing is us offering services, bundled services with wireless, along with our broadband plan. As you know, we're streaming sports and whatnot, so we're trying to stay competitive with the market. Do you have anything to add to that, Christian?
Sure, I think you nailed it. It's to make the customer stickier, provide
Yeah.
a full suite of services to provide the telecommunications
Yep.
services that they want and need. And to expand a little bit on the kind of our wireless offload strategy, we did purchase a decent chunk of spectrum over the last couple of years. And as Alyssa mentioned, we've been testing the CBRS. It's live in Philadelphia and is being rolled out to a handful of other markets as we speak. Hasn't been turned on yet. And I think that's something that we'll continue to strategically do. Not to build, a macro network to compete with you guys, but to kind of complement our MVNO strategy and as a cost mitigation strategy we're picking, the most high usage little census block areas and building our network there to offload versus going over Verizon's network and paying them in the MVNO.
Yeah, and on our side, so same thing, the stickiness of the customer. We see where when we roll fiber to an area, if they're already a 5G customer of ours on the wireless side, it's easier to pick them up on the fiber side. And same thing, that there's a lot more stickiness if they've got both products with us.
Is it fair to say at the margins, low hanging fruit type thing, right? Still. What about spectrum, John? I mean, same thing?
Yeah, it's the same thing for Spectrum. It's a stickiness thing. So, I mean, very similar to Comcast, we're doing these small things on the margins to offload that traffic from Verizon so the payments aren't as big. But again, we're not going full out like Comcast with the Spectrum. We're using other ways to do that.
All really good questions. Any more? Larry?
An observation and a question. Back when this conference started, broadband wasn't really an industry yet. We had cable folks and we had telco folks, and they were coming from totally different worlds. And it took a while for them to realize that they were headed to be in the same industry. And that had lots of implications, including for tax and things that you guys talked about all the time. And it was very interesting to see as the years of this conference went by that we stopped talking about cable and telephone and just started talking about broadband. I'm beginning to sense the same thing in wireless, in wireline now. And I wonder just how long in the future could have separate broadband and wireless panels. And we'll just maybe end up with just one panel. And maybe this year, next year, next year or year after or when?
I'll tell you what, it's interesting you brought that up because I kind of observed that just watching, the first panel and having seen you guys' slides, that just struck me immediately. Wow, I didn't comment on it, but there was more, I don't overlap's the term, but really just as linked more than I expected. And I noticed a difference this year just based on these panels from other years. I mean, don't you? What about you guys? You see it? I mean, it's like, yeah, you can see it coming even by just what we're doing here.
Any online questions or chat?
Thank you, everyone, and please thank Alyssa and Stephen for being panelists and presenting.
Thank you.
And thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Christian.
Okay, we're into this session a little bit early, but we still need to start the next one at the appointed time, which will be at 3:45. And so we'll see everybody back both online and live at